Aging is the loss of information about body structures.
I want to keep people in their 20s and 30s for hundreds of years.
Next up is a session that takes us right back to our own fantasies, the concept of age reversal, of longevity, and longevity possibly is a much more plausible thing. The Economist recently had a cover story saying that just as earlier lifespan used to be at 30, then it shifted to 50, then it became 70s, and then they said just around the corner, it's going to be very normative for us to live healthily up to 120 is what they're saying now, and then that could keep increasing. So both longevity and age reversal are, again, kind of human fantasies that are very, very real and becoming, immediate science, not future science. And next up is a session of people who are working at the cutting edge of this, and they'll give us a sense, as we've called the session, how much of this is science, how much of it is snake oil, and it's a fascinating conversation because, as I said, it lies at the heart of our fantasy of ourselves and what we want to do with the lives that we've been given. And so to discuss, the entire landscape of longevity and age reversal, please welcome on stage Avi Roy. He is an entrepreneur and a researcher on age reversal and longevity. Please come on stage. We have Elena Sergeeva, who's also a teacher, a professor, and a researcher on age reversal and on longevity, and Sanjeev Galande, who is a geneticist with the Shiv Nadar University. So all three of them are really at the cutting edge of this, and we're very delighted to have them on stage. Thank you very much. We've all been fed on all the possibilities, and as I said, age reversal and longevity is really at the frontiers of human fantasy. So before, Avi, I wanted to start with you, that all of this is first going to begin with personalized medicine, which is much closer home. So before we delve into longevity and age reversal, tell us, what is the case for this kind of hyper-personalized medicine?
Well, first, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for organizing this and inviting me, and the last 2 days have been fantastically stimulating.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so currently, my work features all the way from coming from being a researcher to trying to deliver precision and personalized medicine, unfortunately, for the people who can afford it, because, as Elena will point out later, we really don't have perfect treatments. So we may have great vaccines that can take off certain types of diseases, but we really don't have that for the long diseases of aging. And so the way personalized medicine works today, that we are trying to make it work, is to collect enough data on you from your smartwatches, your smart rings, from your blood data, from your functional health data, in order to create a digital twin of you. And then we can try different things. Your genetic history obviously plays a part, but that is the part where it gets expensive. We can try different things with your digital twin and prognosticate what is going to happen to you, and then we can try to intervene. This is what we call preventive medicine. But the reality of the situation is, there are many doctors in this room, including my sister, that is not a thing. Medical people, clinicians, are trained to be firefighters. You have to have the fire, aka the disease, before you can treat. No doctor is going to start to give you prescriptions, and no clinical research is done on healthy people. Distinguishing healthy people from non-healthy people is like on the night of the 18th birthday, suddenly that boy who was immature becomes able to vote. So there's this knife edge where you are not healthy and suddenly you're diabetic. We want to see that spectrum, and we want to be able to intervene a lot earlier so that you never become pre-diabetic and things like that. So that's what preventive medicine is today.
But you were talking of it almost like a portfolio, an investment. Talk to us about that. What is that idea?
Well, that's how we try to present to our clients, and what we're trying to do is to complement everybody to race to the top rather than race to the bottom. And the idea is, just like everyone here has a financial portfolio and they'll take their money to Morgan Stanley or whatever financial institution of your choice, and what they will do is that you have X amount of money today and you want it to 2x or 3x or 4x in the next 20 years. And they will make a model for you. Invest in this, invest in that, and that's how you can get there. Think of your health exactly the same way. This is where you are today, and tomorrow you want to be Brian Johnson or something like that, something similar to that. Or as Peter Attia puts it, when you are 80 or 90, you want to be able to lift your grandchildren or great-grandchildren. So design on that, you have interventions, this much lifestyle. In your 70s, this much medications in order to gain muscle or whatever. So that you want to think of your health as just like you think of your financial portfolio. And we also think that it should be portable. Our hypothesis of preventive medicine should be available to other clinicians all over the world, and they should be able to peer review and fact check that and find out what to be done, exactly like your financial portfolio.
Right. Elena, I just want to bring you in here. We'll come back to longevity. I want to start at the realm of age reversal, because that really, first, if you would help us distinguish between longevity and age reversal. Is it the same thing? Or with us, in our popular imagination, especially coming from, say, David Sinclair and others who've been, or Brian Johnson was here, the idea is that when you become 70, you can go back to being 25, in terms of your brain, your body, live another 70 years again. So literally reverse age. Is that a scientific possibility?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thank you for organizing such a beautiful event. I work at Tufts University and with Institute at Harvard with Michael Levin. So we study briefly anatomical and behavioral decision-making in multi-scale of biological, artificial, and hybrid systems. So we look at the aging from slightly different lens and perspective than in mainstream field, but yeah, we can probably talk later about that. What's about longevity and age reversal? Age reversal is actually quite a tricky term because in the field, people actually use different terms. They use reversal of aging, which is most controversial. They say sometimes age reversal, and they say rejuvenation. There's slight difference between them, but yeah, just let's talk about rejuvenation. So rejuvenation currently is possible by few techniques in animal models. There is 0 drugs approved for rejuvenation and for aging in humans. Of course, there are some supplements, something like that, which can actually improve your longevity, improve your health span. But there is now nothing currently specifically for rejuvenation. Yeah, and of course, it brings a lot of hype in the field and a lot of controversy. People try to sell different, not quite approved and studied interventions, which is a different topic.
But Elena, I'd just like to actually lay out some, and I want to bring Sanjeev into it. And Sanjeev, being a geneticist, I want to put some questions to you, but I'd also love you to ask them some questions. In this, I just want to, we spoke to George Church earlier, and he's really at the front end of age reversal. And so there's some pillars that have been defined, say by David Sinclair. It's like cocktails of chemicals. There's potentially with epigenes. There's, we had Liz Parrish last year who's done gene therapies like with telomeres. So there are actual pathways to reversing age. David Sinclair says he's reversed the age of dogs, mice. He's reversed blindness. We had John Cryan saying that they've done tests with a fecal transplant where they've managed to make an old mouse into a young mouse with fecal transplant, for God's sake. So, first, do you think that this is science or snake oil? And then I'll open it up for you to speak with them as well.
Well, if you ask me, being a researcher, I would say it's science because it's backed with data. So all of these studies that you heard from all these people, including Lace Parrish, who was here on the same forum last year, as well as the microbiome analysis and everything. Avi will talk later about the number of different measurements that people have used to put together to understand what's the difference and what it takes to do the reversal of the aging process and understand it better. So all of these studies are enabling us to first understand the process and then slowly use that data in a manner that Avi just described. I like this analogy of health management, just like the way we do wealth management, and using that as a tool to promote longevity.
So, Avi, he said that you're going to talk about the parameters. So actually, that's a really good point. Tell us, what is the parameters? In my head, age reversal means I'll go back to being my 20-year-old self. Can I dance like that? Can I have babies? What does it even mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think Disney has good ideas about that. You get that magic wand, and you hit it, and you become a princess again.
Forget Disney. That's what a lot of scientists are saying. But what's the parameters?
Yeah, we were discussing earlier, and I hope that I am controversial so that I can wake people up. But I want to just, before I answer your question, I just want to point out where we are. I think two things that I want to point out. One, I would guarantee 99%, I just don't want to say 100%, but I should say 100%. Almost 100% of this room doesn't have all their parameters checked. So we just talked about interventions. Well, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you are. It's a relative thing. So that's a problem. But that's a problem universally, which is my second point. We have Google Maps of obscure places that nobody ever goes before, except for the residents that are born there. But we don't have a Google Maps of the body. What I mean is that you don't have a humans.org where you can see how a human, the entire system, changes over time. We don't know that. So we are lacking significant data points. So to your point, which is that those measurements, we rely on classical measurements, the things that we can actually change in clinic and the things that are actually causally related with clinic. And some of them are really hard to fake. You may be like a 28-year-old when you're in your 60s in your epigenetic age test because we're still working out the kinks. But your VO2 max tells...
What is that?
Well, it's the amount of oxygen that your muscles can draw from the air and your lungs can draw from the air in order to power you, basically. That's an oversimplified version for those who are biochemists here, including Pranay, who may be sitting here somewhere, and of course my colleagues. So it's a really good marker that is very hard to fake unless you are metabolically fit, both with muscle, lean mass, and aerobic capacity. So we rely on those markers right now in clinic, but there are a whole bunch of advanced markers that are coming up. One of the biggest problems that people will tell you with longevity research is that it takes a lifetime to know whether the intervention, the treatment, whether it be a Mediterranean diet or a metformin, worked or not. So the type of research that you are doing, the epigenetic clocks, they can be very useful. Within a week or a month, they will be able to tell you whether it's working or not. It's not ready for clinic yet, so we're not working with those completely. We do use those. But yeah, they're coming down the pipeline, and that is going to change the landscape of clinical trials and discoveries of medicine, from Ayurvedic medicine all the way to peptides and gene therapies, because we can quickly see if it's working or not.
Again, to just bring the audience into this conversation and to understand how many are sort of really thinking about these things, how many of you would opt for age reversal if it was available to us? Wow, really few, so that itself is fascinating.
I want to, what we mean by age reversal is the disabilities that you have as you get older. You justify, I was actually speaking with your sister, you justify as you get older, oh yes, that knee ache that happens now when I get out of bed in the morning, that's fine because I have wisdom. Or that lower back pain, or that, the gray hair is vanity to color it, or it's vanity to even think about the gray hair being bad. Or the flip side is, aren't you lucky to be alive instead of being dead? Which is true, but the thing is that we are Homo sapiens, the thinking apes. We designed the axe to hunt down the calories fast enough so that we can power ourselves. We can take that axe to our DNA. And why, whenever you say equitability, people think of money. But some people have been born with this gene that inhibits them from producing LDL regardless of how many pizzas they eat. Why shouldn't everybody in this room have that gene? Because there's all, and that can go on. And think about kids being born. Like, if you want to give a kid a gift of life, you should have all the alleles, aka gene variants in humans that have shown to have long, healthy lives. People who are in their 80s, 90s, still driving cars, still taking care of their life. Why shouldn't kids be born with that? That's equitability to me, a biological equitability. That's what you want. When we think of longevity, all our cultures think of stealing it from something else. But I'm talking about staying as you are in your 20s and 30s with all the possibilities.
The most exciting thing about these 2 days is to meet the most diverse ways of thinking and perspectives. At the very least, it's mind-opening. The first time I spoke with Avi, he used a phrase that just stuck in my head because right then it was the beginning of this journey. It was so audacious. He said, biological age is modifiable, And I was just like, who are these people who think that death is not inevitable, biological age is modifiable, Suddenly it becomes very normal to say these things, but it's pretty mind-shifting. So Elena and Sanjeev, please do jump in and ask them the questions. But Elena, coming to you, we've sort of got used to hearing these words. Brian Johnson was in India recently, and people are talking about epigenes and telomeres and chemical cocktails. But the cutting edge work that you and Mike are doing is 1 degree further, which is that genes don't make up our destiny. It doesn't make up humans. It's bioelectricity, and it's the software that really can be hacked, can be manipulated, can be changed. Mike has been doing it in his laboratory. Sadly, he can't join us. But y'all have literally created new life forms by hacking bioelectricity. And you feel you can generate limbs, you can reverse age. Talk to us about this.
Okay, yeah, happy to talk about that. Yeah, actually genes are very important. They are encoding our building blocks of our body proteins. But genes, it's definitely not the whole story. For example, we all start our life as a quiescent oocyte. Then it divides, makes many cells, but somehow we're not ending up as a bag of cells. We have highly differentiated structures, anatomies, organs, and where these anatomies are coming from. So the first response would be, okay, these anatomies are encoded in genes. Actually not. I can give you another example. Twins, when oocyte or blastula is separated, they actually can build separate organisms. And where is information about 2 separate organisms in our genes? Nowhere. The truth is that the information about our body structures comes from something else. And this comes from cell-to-cell communication in cellular collectives and how it works. For example, when we talk about our brains, we know that brains are made up of neurons. Neurons have connections, synapses actually, yeah, and they exchange electrical pulses. And this is how they exchange information. This is how we learn, and this is how our memory is stored. But these brains and nervous system did not evolve from nowhere. So they actually evolved from non-neuronal somatic cells and tissues. And the truth is that all cells in our body, in animals, in plants, and even in bacterial cells and bacterial colonies and biofilms talk to each other using bioelectricity, like neurons. So cells talk to each other using bioelectricity, and they form kind of memory, like our neurons and brains form memories. They form kind of memory about body structures and anatomies. And this is where our body anatomy is coming from. So, and this information is not stored in genes, yes, this is stored in bioelectrical patterns. Bioelectrical patterns are cell membrane voltages across cell collectives, tissues, and organs, which we can study. And most importantly, we can manipulate that. And we manipulate bioelectrical patterns for a range of biomedical applications, such as development, regeneration, cancer, and recently for aging. As I said at the beginning, we look at aging from slightly different perspectives. So in mainstream field, we think that aging is accumulation of damage. Yes, this is true, but it's again not a whole story. For us, aging is a loss of information about body structure. So cells either forget how to talk to each other using bioelectricity, or they remember, but they cannot execute. And so, like we manipulate that bioelectrical patterns for other biomedical applications, and this is actually, it's not magic, it's experiments done in our lab, when we can regenerate limbs in frogs, when we can induce organs in unusual places. So the same way, we're manipulating aging.
That's incredible, Sanjeev.
Bioelectricity, wow. I mean, I was just thinking now we should get the stage electrified with some few questions. But before that, I mean, I was a bit surprised to see the less number of hands that went up when Avi asked the question, how many of you would like to reverse aging? So it's either that people don't believe they are aging, or they don't believe the science of longevity. So we'll come to that. So Elena, I mean, you talked about bioelectricity and the membrane potential and the electrical currents and the synapses and the energy that flows between our cells. Is it possible, with all these new scientific discoveries that are happening in the field of longevity and reversal of aging, to restore the cognitive decline that happens during aging? Because that's the most important part, right? You don't want to stay alive as a vegetable. You want to be thinking as brightly as you were, let's say, in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah, health span is definitely important. No one wants to live 200 years like a vegetable, as you're saying. Yeah, and you might know recently announced X Prize. This is prize given to the team which could reverse aging 10 years back at least. And it should be shown in a few systems: muscles, immune system, and cognitive or brain. Yeah, so definitely brain is very important. And you know, brain function, cognitive function is actually it's a byproduct of how our substrate is functioning. So if we can make cell collectives to maintain brain structure in time, so to speak, delay aging, then cognitive function also will be preserved.
Elena, and I just want to sort of bring the audience into this a little bit, because like I said, I'm an outsider and I'm not a scientist. So I know what it takes to begin to even understand all of this and shift the brain, forget about reversing the brain, first to arrive where you guys are. So I just want to quickly tell you that the kind of work that Elena and Mike Levin are doing, I don't know how much you picked up on it, but what she was saying, and this is the thing which fascinated us and wanted to, why we wanted to invite them, was that the premise they began from is that why does a cell know what to do even before the brain is created? So we begin from literally chemicals, and how does it know just how to grow into a baby before the brain is formed? And so that idea that every cell has an intelligence, and that intelligence is in the bioelectric layer. And just to, again reiterate what she said they've done in their lab, is that they've made flatworms by hacking the bioelectric layer. So George Church is, gene editing. They're hacking bioelectricity. They've made a flatworm grow 2 heads. They've made Picasso frogs. So they've made the eye of the frog come out in the bum. They've made regenerated limbs. They've created new life forms just out of a cell. And then those cells have purpose. So if you define intelligence as the capacity to have purpose, that's what they're doing in their labs, So when you take it upwards, there's a kind of cellular collectives that intelligence just keeps scaling up, but that it's there in every cell. So I don't know if that's a correct summation of your work.
Perfect explanation.
So I wanted them to, really understand what you're saying, because it took us a lot of reading to begin to understand what you're saying. So Avi, I just want to, you to comment on what Elena said, and that you both as an entrepreneur and a researcher, out of all these technologies or pathways to age reversal, which ones do you think are the most plausible in the short term? And then I'll come to what you pointed, like why is there such low desire to reverse age? We'll come to the moral, ethical, social issues around it.
Yeah, so I think the question was about brain and neurodegenerative. That is actually, believe it or not, one of the hardest problems. So if you are of Indian origin or majority of Southeast Asian origin, you have genetics that predispose you towards metabolic dysfunction or metabolic syndrome. That is a very solvable problem. Cardiovascular is a problem that we can tackle. Now, neurodegenerative or immune dysfunction, we have a framework of how to tackle it. We have a good understanding of it, and we are getting there step by step, which includes autoimmune disease. But neurodegenerative, I mean, the shocking thing really is, it's approximately correct that over 100 years ago, when Alzheimer's was naming the disease, which is possibly a form of dementia rather than Alzheimer's, but the treatment option that was available to a patient at that point of time, over 120 years ago, is approximately the same. That should really shock you, because we have made advances in cardiovascular, in cancer, in kidney disease, in all of those things, but neurodegenerative brain is really the last puzzle and the last frontier, and that is really a problem. One other thing that I want to kind of say that is eye-opening, that leads back to what we were discussing, that you guys don't want to be younger. When you get your results for your blood report, reluctantly maybe, because you guys don't want to be younger, but you have this annual check or biannual check, or your kids or your partners forces you to get your blood report, think about what happens when you go to the clinic with that report, or your doctor sees that report. She says, you're looking good. But the next part, for your age, as if she's not talking to you. She's talking to an entire population of Indians or Jamaicans or British people. You should be your health, not the population's health. Why are doctors or people comparing you to a 40-year-old group or a 50-year-old group? How are you compared to you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago? That is the thing that we are going after. That is what we mean when we say longevity.
So Avi, yeah, at this point, I thought I should ask you something very provocative. So you talk about extension of lifespan. David Sinclair said once, and this is public knowledge, that the individual who will live 150 years is already born. Okay, what's your comment on this? Can we surpass this so-called number, or what are the efforts that are being done to make sure that many of us who are people who are born recently will have the capacity to live longer than 150 years?
Just so you know, we prepped this cricket baseball game. So he's throwing me softballs and I'm going to hit it out of the park or something like that. But the controversial part is that David says 150 years. My mentor, Aubrey de Grey, in, I think, MIT review in 2007, said the person who is going to be 1,000 years old is already born.
Oh my God, okay.
Yeah. I didn't believe in either of those numbers until 2020. Let me tell you what's the groundbreaking moment, I think, for all three of us. Pretty much anybody who has PhD in biology or is related to that field. We thought that the number of proteins, there are over 200,000 proteins. And by 2020, we had decoded maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3% of those. And that effort was 60 years on. And in 2020, during the pandemic, AlphaFold solved all of them. And since then, it has gotten even better. So I now subscribe to much more optimistic. I thought I was optimistic and see the future, and I was out of the way. I was science fiction. I wasn't science fiction enough. So I think David Sinclair is underestimating the advances that will happen over the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. Only regulation can get in the way, or the pace of change can, slow down only because of, queuing up for clinical trials.
So then, do you see that all these people who are going to live 150 years will be popping 150 pills a day, like the way Brian Johnson does? What are the ways by which one could extend lifespan to this extent? Not just 150, maybe thousands of years.
I mean, Elena's research is going to be part of it. It's at early stage. But, again, the nice thing about now in this part of my life being in clinic is that I look at my 77-year-old dad and that's my target. How do I reverse that? I'm agnostic to Elena's method or Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine as long as, that financial portfolio that I talked to you guys about, you guys know what it means to have one additional dollar or one additional rupee in your thing. You guys know what an interest rate is. Those are called fundamental markers in your financial portfolio. We have those in clinical markers. What does it mean to run like a 67-year-old man or a 57-year-old man or climb the stairs? We have those fundamental markers, and we will take any method to start moving the needle. There are already some on the market, which I think you're going to be asking me about. There are already some on the market that I am putting in my body. My friend and co-founder, Liz Parrish, is ahead of me in putting other things in the body, but they're already approved drugs that can start to slow down at least some of the aging and reverse a bit of the damage. It cannot convert my 77-year-old dad into a 7-year-old dad even, but it can at least slow down from 77 to 78 and things like that. So that is right now, but the future may look like a few gene therapies, a few bioelectric therapies, not 150 pills. That's not going to happen.
Okay, so let me ask both of you one thing, which is that you're at the cut, actually all three of you. Avi, how old are you?
44.
You're 44. Do you already feel the need to de-age? Knowing all of this, what is it that you can do which I'm not going to reveal my age. Internet makes me older than I am, but what is it that you can do which we can't? I mean, in terms of you're 44, you have all access to all the sciences right now. I'm sure you've tried all of it. So, what makes you less than 44?
I think your question is what is the difference between
No, you're 44. Are you behaving like a 44-year-old, or do you have you reversed your capacities to someone younger than yourself?
No, I never grew up in the first place. I think my family is here. They'll tell you that. My partner is
So you
saying,
haven't tested any of this on yourself?
No, I have. I mean,
That's what I was
being
asking.
facetious. But I think your first question was quite insightful, as in what do I have access to that other people don't? I think it's a mindset. It's really a mindset that this degradation, this degeneration, this dehumanization, I really want to use that word, that happens over time is acceptable. To me, a myopic vision, whether it be of the eye or of the mind, can be solved with lenses or with gene therapy. So it's an engineering problem, and you can tackle that. I mean, we have had conversations where you have been kind of awed by that, but really, the difference, I have access to the same stuff that you all have access to, and the only reason why only 20% of you, or maybe 10% of you rose your hand when Shoma asked that question, is because every narrative that we have in society, forget all the technologies, every narrative, can you tell me one story where the witch is not boiling virgins and children, or the vampire is not or Wolverine is not pining, I mean, they could just take that advanced technology and give it to all humans, so that everybody lives with Wolverine.
No, but that actually brings us to the heart of it, and I'd like all three of you to speak about it. I was just thinking while listening to you, so I'm just sharing a personal story, but our mother was very unwell towards the end of her life, and she actually was living with us. So, this humiliation and degradation that you said of the body, I actually saw it happen, and I mean, when she passed away, I was actually elated. My siblings were sad. I was just elated. It was so horrible to see her suffer. So when I was listening to you, I was thinking, wow, if all of that existed, I would have loved her to pass healthily, not having to suffer the way she did. But would I want her to live forever, or would she have wanted to live forever? I'm not sure. And I think, I'm not, I may be speaking for everyone in the dark, but I think why such few hands went up is because there's a deeper philosophical question here. Yes, you want to live healthily, but I want to die, and you guys are talking about extending life endlessly. So there's a philosophical thing here. So I'd love all three of you to weigh in on that. Avi, you're having a director's moment. Suddenly you're quiet.
No, I'm not quiet. I'm just saying that I have changed my pitch when some of you have already spoken to me. ask me what I do, I say I want to keep people in their 20s and 30s for hundreds of years. That's what I do. As in 20s and 30s, your peak biological capacity. Nobody wants to live like a 100-year-old for hundreds of years. That is not the aim of what we do.
No, I think it's the hundreds of years that we are discussing. Of course, all of us want to be in our 20s till we die. But the point is that, and that's what our film was talking about, and that's what Nick Bostrom was talking about, that when abundance arrives and you have autopotency and you can do everything, what will human purpose be? In a way, the finiteness of life does give it some meaning, some purpose. You know, you want to get things done. That's the way I think, and I'm open to it being shifted. What do you think, Elena?
Are you talking about eternity, like if we achieve immortality at some point and we'll be bored and so we will not have purpose to live, or like...
I mean, I don't know what the time span for boredom is. Maybe eternity, maybe... I don't know how to even answer this. I'm just trying to get insight into your ways of thinking. What is your cutoff date for boredom? You know? Like, do you want to die at 300 or never die, or you want to die at 500?
I think it's really profound philosophical question. I think that people, just like normal general people in general, will be not bored for at least few hundreds of years. So like we always can set new goals and purposes. Yeah, but later it's a question if we would be bored and will not find the purpose for life. But still, okay, probably let me elaborate on slightly different aspect. We're not anywhere close to radical life extension yet. So all we can do with our clinical advancements right now is to extend our life, healthy lifespan, probably plus 10 years in the best case scenario, and we cannot do more. And actually this is the same level which we could achieve with healthy diet and such just normal lifestyle interventions. Didn't you think why, after all these advances in biomedicine, all these technologies developed, we're still at the same level as 1,000 years traditional Indian or Chinese medicine were? So if you are more plus minus healthy and want to extend your life, what would you do? Sleep well, eat healthy, exercise, or take some metabolic drugs which would do the same for you if you're lazy. That's basically it for now, unfortunately.
I want to actually challenge you, because you did a bait and switch. You talked about a very personal story about your mom's neurodegenerative degradation, and then the alleviation of that suffering because it couldn't be provided through engineering solution, through death. And then you ask the questions, like when I tried to say that in 20s and 30s, but think about the narrative that society has. When a 95-year-old dies, we say, well, that's really bad, and she had a good life. When a 15-year-old dies or a 25-year-old dies, we are like, this is the saddest thing in the world. They had their whole life ahead of them. Now remember, Malthus pointing out life is short, nasty, and brutish. It's only since 1850 that the median lifespan has gone from 32, which is 99% of human existence, to what it is today, which is around 80, and it will be around 90. Lifespan has pretty much tripled since 1850, and I don't see anybody in their 80s going, kill me now. I mean, they may say that, but when they are in the hospital, but they're not saying that. So we have had a tripling of lifespan. Why do you think that tripling of lifespan again means that humans will suddenly, we adapt so well. I mean, we adapt to situations so well. And so I think that's a...
I told you, you know, the one beauty is that the moment you meet people like this, you do have to shift your parameters of ways of thinking, you know. So, Avi, I mean, salute you for that.
So, yeah, it is a paradigm shift. And as Avi liked to put it, so we never had problems while looking at this happening over just a matter of 2 centuries. And now the pace of science has moved so fast. We are accelerating everything, right? So we heard in the last 2 days a number of ways by which human beings are going to be accelerating a variety of things, be it healthcare, with AI and whatnot. So extension of lifespan could be also one of those things. So there's one thing about what you said, and this is extension of, is it going to be only the chronological age or biological? So because there is some distinction between the two. You are extending your lifespan, which is your chronological time, 150 years, 200 years, but at the same time, biologically, you may be much younger. It could be in your 30s and 40s. Science is looking at both, how to extend the chronological lifespan as well as how to make it appear or feel younger.
I've just had a eureka moment on stage. You know, this was such a mind shift that actually from 30s to 90s, we're okay with it. And I suddenly thought, yeah, if I'm healthy and I can live another 90 years, I mean, yes, you did help shift the status quo, at least for me. Maybe we can do another raise of hands. How many would reverse your age or extend your age if you could, the way they are describing it? You haven't won the house, Avi. It's okay.
Few more hands, yes.
Very few other hands. Very uneloquent scientist you are. Elena, just to end with you, you know, to go to the extremes of this, you were saying that, you know, we're talking about all of this which is already there. It's in the labs. Much of it is waiting FDA clearance for human trials to begin. But you were saying that actually there are scientists who are taking it even further. One of them who I looked up was John Herbert. You know, you said that to look up the ARPA, and that's what President Biden has sanctioned millions of dollars to look at non-sentient body creation so that you can jump into bodies like jumpsuits. They are also doing, you know, I've mentioned this earlier, they're taking brain tissue from fetuses, you know, dead fetuses or whatever the correct word is, and transplanting it to see if older brains will, you know, take in the plasticity and etc. I mean, anything we're discussing, there's always something more happening. So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's one of the newest advancements in longevity field with so-called replacement. So when we are not trying to rejuvenate our body, but instead we want to replace our body. Parts of our bodies, for example, organs by transplantation of younger organs, but of course not from other human beings, but from unconscious clones, which would be grown specifically for you using your genetic material, but they will not have brain, and of course they will not have any consciousness. And we could replace our bodies either with a bunch of organs from that clone, some certain organs, or the whole body even. And the reason behind that, with strategies for rejuvenation, for radical rejuvenation, I mean, not just like plus about 10 years, but radical rejuvenation, we're talking about 50 years, like 100 years and more. There's just so far now from us that this replacement strategy seems to be most feasible. And you mentioned Jean Hebert. He actually claims, he did studies in the lab before he was appointed as ARPA-H program manager for this specific replacement strategy. He actually started with research on brain replacement. He replaced parts of the brains, and they were perfectly well functioning. And he started from the notion that well, you probably know we have this extracellular matrix, we have cells, and we have extracellular matrix around the cells, that it becomes hard and not fluid, that it couldn't be rejuvenated. So he claims that it's just impossible to rejuvenate. Whatever genes, machinery we change inside of the cells, this extracellular glue, so to speak, will not allow us to rejuvenate. Yeah, this is like one point of view, yeah.
Sanjeev, you want to say some last words?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to end with something controversial. So I was talking to Avi, and there's a lot of hype about this new class of drugs, which many of you are aware, the GLP-1 agonists. And they have been used for reduction of BMI, but they also have this...
Don't use scientific words, use other words.
Okay, for anti-obesity.
You're talking about Ozempic? Oh.
Yeah, that's one brand name, but there are multiple such drugs in the market. And Avi admitted openly that he injects himself with one of those drugs for extension of his, or rather for staying young. So Avi, would you like to comment on that? Because there's a lot of words going around whether these drugs are going to be good in the long run and what exactly is going to be the outcome, let's say, for people who are taking these drugs for a decade. I mean, they'll obviously have reduction in their body weight, but will there be any other effects? And if you're claiming that it's going to be used as a therapy for staying young, how good it would be?
Thanks for bringing that up. Well, he knows that when...
Why were you hiding? I asked
no.
you if you're doing things earlier. Thank you, Sanjeev.
No.
I'm glad you had a drink together last night.
No, so my alarm went off to take this medication because it's a peptide, so you take it once a month. But please remember my financial portfolio for health portfolio analysis. The financial advice I give, it doesn't work for your portfolio. It may make your stocks go down, so don't listen to the advice, blah, blah, blah. And same continues. So I am not a medical doctor, I'm a PhD. As my sister, my brother-in-law, other people here are medical doctors. I have a team of medical doctors with whom I work. The first GLP drug was actually approved in 2004. So we know the class of mechanism this is. It started working better with liraglutide, which is around 2014, but starting working amazingly well with semaglutide, which is Ozempic, which everybody has heard about, and with Mounjaro especially well, which came out at around 2018-ish. So we've got about 10 years of really good clinical and post-clinical data, as in phase 4 data, so we can make good hypotheses. I made a bet with my sister last night that when I come back to
You're
this...
You're telling many things except his
Well, I'm coming to that. Sorry, Bengali. The point is that I made a bet that if I come back to this conference 5 years from now, 90% of you guys will be on it. Again, let me tell you why. The latest research reports point out that these class of drugs, the GLP, GIP, glucagon, it doesn't matter what it is, has systemic benefits that are outside of losing weight, including there is Alzheimer's trial data that is supposed to come out in the second quarter of this year. That is why I take it. One other thing is that I want to say, you should not do anything without actually conversing with your doctor or your medical team. And I just want to say that in our clinical practice, drug that I give to my clients or recommend for my clients after having tested all their data and monitoring their data in the future, I do it myself because that is skin in the game. And if you don't have skin in the game, then I'm sorry, you might be a charlatan.
Thank you very much, all three of you. You know, this conversations can go on, but the one thing that I do take away every time I meet any of you on this stage is that none of you are status quoists, you know. I was just thinking that the moment anything happens to us, we kind of take it as an inevitability, like death or my mother's death, or you guys come across a problem and you think, how can I change the problem and solve it? You know, like push the boundary. So that, I mean, that's the one thing that's been common to every speaker here. None of you are status quoists. So thank you for pushing boundaries, good, evil, bad, but you're definitely pushing boundaries. Thank you very, very much, all three of you.
Thank you.